Hey everyone, welcome to Think Peace episode 6. I am the mind of Lilith, and in today's topic I'll be sharing my thoughts about an interview that Hazel E did with the Bays TV, and I'll post a link to that in the description box. In this interview, she expresses regrets about marrying her dusty, abusive husband. So for those of you who don't know, Hazel E was a member of the Love and Hip Hop LA cast a few years ago, and her love life has always been tumultuous since we've known of her. She dated Cat Williams for a little while, but apparently they broke up because she was desperate for marriage and a baby before the age of 40, and he wasn't particularly on board with that. So instead of spending money, on a therapist to work on her own issues, Hazel E decided to go under the knife for a slew of plastic surgery procedures to make herself more appealing to the opposite sex. Because in a system of patriarchy, male validation and sex is worth more than personal happiness and fulfillment. In fact, many women believe that male attention and happiness are inextricably linked. A few weeks ago when I was reviewing the show The Bell Collective, I said that some women are married to the idea of being a wife more than they are to their husbands. They stay married because they feel validated by the social status of being someone's wife. Because, as I mentioned earlier, wives are exalted over single women in a patriarchal society. Their lives mean more than the average single woman's life until the husband has an itch to scratch. And then he'll do and say anything in the world for some new single vagina, to which the wife is thrown under the bus, until the husband has been satisfied by the side piece, or she puts the fear of God into him by threatening to expose their affair, thus potentially destroying his comfortable situation with his wife. But many women like Letitia stay married to abusive, philandering, and useless husbands because the social validation is worth more than their peace of mind. It doesn't matter your age, your race, or your station. Women around the world seek matrimonial happiness to fill the chasm within their hearts. A lot of these women weren't raised with their fathers, so they've romanticized all men to be their potential knights in shining armor. And these knights are supposed to rescue us from the broken hearts that our fathers have left us with, In the patriarchy, the word wife is synonymous with princess, as in the Princess and the Pea, Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, Rapunzel, Beauty and the Beast, and so on. Many lonely, desperate women are yearning to be a man's little princess, even if it's just for a damn day, and that's what the wedding is for. So anyway, Hazel E tells the host that she didn't want to be on the dating scene at 40 years old, so she rushed and started dating a hobosexual bum who hopped into her DMs on Instagram. They both lied about their ages. He said that he was older and she said that she was younger. I mean, the relationship was already off to a bad start because the dusty boyfriend was looking for a mommy to rescue him from his poverty, his laziness, and his mediocrity, and Hazel E was looking to be rescued from her own deep sense of inadequacy and worthlessness as a single woman approaching 40. So she let this dusty bum move into her home after only 2 weeks of knowing him. He didn't have a job, didn't have a bank account. All he brought to the table was sweet words, average looks, and a hard penis. He told her everything she wanted to hear because women fall for what men say and men fall for how a woman looks. Hence the Adam and Eve situation, So now the reason I'm using harsh language to describe this man is because of the terrible things he started doing to Hazel and their baby after they rushed to get married within 4 months. As I mentioned before, men usually get married quickly when they're love bombing and they have something to hide, like Martell, and some women rush to get married when they feel like the clock is ticking and there's a fire sale on men after they've reached a certain age. Hazel E also expressed regret about sabotaging her relationship with Cat Williams because he paid for everything, including some of her plastic surgeries from what I remember. But because of her insecurity and thirst for marriage at all costs, to which Cat didn't agree, she decided to end the relationship and ultimately ended up marrying a broke buck who she had to financially provide for because, social validation was more important than her personal happiness, comfort, and stability. In this society, wives are put on a pedestal over single women who are too loose, wild, and free to subject themselves to a life of slavery for a man. So even though Hazel E had most of what she wanted as a single woman dating a rich man like Cat Williams, she was still unsatisfied because the patriarchy told her that she was only a valuable human being as some man's wife. Doesn't matter what kind of man. Having any man as a husband was better than being a beautiful, comfortable, healthy, successful, single woman. So she married a dusty bum after 4 months, but not before they went on marriage boot camp 2 months into their relationship, right? For the money, okay? She got $100,000 and this dusty bum received $20,000 for laying pipe for 2 months. Remember what I said before, men are just as hypergamous as women. Anyway, she had to put his check from the show in her bank account because he didn't have one. And then she said doing this made him feel more entitled to access her money at will. This man, who probably never had a job or a place of his own, felt entitled to the money of a woman who was taking care of him. Okay, so thanks to the transits of Saturn and Uranus squaring and conjuncting her personal planets, Hazel E was finally about to find out that external validation is very expensive. We have women out here dying on the operating table so that they can compete with other women for male attention and approval, because apparently if you're not desirable to every man, then you're desirable to no man. So I forgot to mention that before Hazel E got married, she received a message from a woman stating that her dusty boyfriend had been having sex with her for about 10 days at that point. But because Hazel E was determined to be a wife at all costs, she went ahead with the wedding anyway. Okay? Her dusty boyfriend was telling her everything that she wanted to hear, so she felt comfortable doing so, in spite of all the red flags. This is why I say that it's important for women to reconfigure their knowledge and language systems. One of my viewers stated that women know exactly what they're doing when they get into these toxic situations, to which I replied that socio-cultural conditioning and brainwashing is designed to override the logic, intellect, and intuition of a woman. So even if our spidey senses are tingling, we will ignore huge red flags because we have been trained to invalidate our own instincts in order to blindly submit to the patriarchy, which isn't just a socio-economic system, it's also a spiritual system designed to extract the energy of the creator gods, which are women, to enrich and empower the ruler gods, which are male. And I'll discuss this topic at a later date. So Hazel E said that after she got married on her dime, because she paid for everything, her dusty hobo of a husband started physically abusing her. Well, before they got married, actually. She said that when they first moved in together, within 2 months, he started to abuse her. Okay. So her dusty hobo of a husband started physically abusing her while she was pregnant and living in Dubai. And once she had their baby, after missing all the red damn flags, he continued to abuse her and their baby to the point where their baby had to be hospitalized. Okay. And because her stupid ass had been exposed to domestic violence as a child, she stayed with this abusive loser because it was normal for her. That's what she said. In my opinion, she stayed because to her, being a wife was more important than every fucking thing else on the planet, including protecting her innocent baby. But it came to a point where this dusty narcissistic man was abusing Hazel, their baby, and the damn dog. This man even tried to kill the woman who rescued him from a life of poverty and obscurity by putting bleach into her water and then blaming it on his alcoholism. Okay, so ultimately she left him after having fantasies about killing him, and she currently has an order of protection against him so that he can't come near her. So because Hazel E was already a broken woman, she attracted a broken man to her. He played on her weaknesses and used the language of patriarchy to seduce her into turning her life over to him because she was desperate to be a submissive wife who allowed her husband to do whatever the fuck he wanted to do as long as he made her feel validated by wearing the wedding ring she paid for. Okay? He began to abuse her, to force her to submit to his will, and to train her like a slave to stay with a man who has nothing to offer her. Not even the ambition to do better by working hard, learning a skill or trade besides slinging his penis around and practicing discipline. It's interesting that Hazel E did not want to submit to Cat Williams because Cat Williams doesn't want to get married. I don't think he ever wanted to get married. He had no problem taking care of her and providing for her needs. But again, because Hazel E wanted the validation of being a wife as a title, She didn't care about the quality of the relationship as long as she was somebody's wife. And that's why she got caught up. So instead of submitting to a man who was a protector and a provider, like Cat Williams, she wanted to submit to the idea of the patriarchy, where a woman is exalted over others because she has the title and the status of being somebody's wife. That is the problem here, okay? So anyway, earlier I talked about the transits of Saturn and Uranus affecting Hazel E's love life. When I looked up her birthday, I saw that she's a first decan Taurus. Saturn, the planet of karma, restriction, and tough love, has been squaring her sun since 2020, forming an angular aspect to her 1st, 4th, 7th, and 10th houses of personality, home and family, marriage and partnerships, and career, respectively. Also, with Uranus conjuncting her sun for the past few years, her entire life has been flipped upside down and smashed against a hard rock, because Saturn was not going to let her get away with her ignorance and desperation before it entered Pisces next year. Saturn teaches through deprivation, separation, contraction, and loss. Hazel's entire identity had to be shattered for her to experience a necessary ego death that would lead her towards true enlightenment, healing, and fulfillment. Her dusty boyfriend represented the energy of Uranus, which is also destructive, but it's also liberating. But, this process is usually very painful, it's abrupt, and it's permanent. There is no way that Hazel E can go back to being the way she was because of the intensity of this dysfunctional relationship. And this intensity has forced her to transform her perspectives, right? She's going through a metamorphosis. So she's even changed her relationship with herself so that she would wake the fuck up and save her own life. She had to do that to survive this situation because this dude probably would have killed her or their child, okay? Prior to the Saturn transit, Hazel E was willing to put up with the abuse of herself and her child until she realized how much her narcissistic husband changed her. And that was the light bulb moment for her. It's usually in life and death situations where people get the wake-up call that they need. If Hazel E did not learn her lesson, she's going to repeat this cycle again in another 5 years when Saturn enters Taurus while Pluto is squaring her sun. I've said all this to say, I have no problem with marriages and relationships in general. I have no problem with love. I have no problem with women marrying men who don't have much to offer initially, but, they have goals and ambitions and they're working towards them actively. No problem with that at all. But again, I do have an issue with women placing their entire worth and self-esteem on a title that someone else is giving them. I can only be happy if I reach this particular goal. So if I don't have everything that I want, I have nothing. This also happened to Kanye West, okay? Ever since he lost Kim Kardashian as his wife, he's now destroying his whole life. Because for him, if he doesn't have everything, he has nothing. Some people are like that. Some people are not grateful or satisfied with the blessings that they have because, again, they're validated by something external to themselves. And whenever you're in that situation, you're always going to get caught up in your own karma. This relationship was karma for Hazel E. Nobody deserves to be abused and beaten and lied to and mistreated. No one deserves that. But this man's energy was in alignment with her own. That's why she rejected Cat Williams, because Cat Williams was willing to do everything for her except put her, on a pedestal as some sort of wife, right? Cat doesn't want to get married. He's in his 50s. He does not want to get married. And I saw how hurt he was when they first broke up, okay? But she was willing to sacrifice a relationship with a man who was a protector and a provider just for a status symbol. And many women fall into this trap. They want to look good to everybody else. They want to floss and stunt and look better than other women, right? I'm a wife and you're not. You don't know anything because, somebody chose me. You're still out here looking for happily ever after, whatever the case may be. There is no such thing as happily ever after. And I told one of my viewers that a lot of the language that women use to describe happiness and marriage, they come from Grimm's fairy tales. These are literary tropes that have been used to brainwash young girls into thinking that marriage is a fairy tale. It is not. It is hard work. It is a grind, especially now if you're a working woman who is married to a man who does not believe in doing housework. He wants you to work outside the home and do all the work within the home. So now you're going to be Cinderella, right? Cleaning up dirty floors, scrubbing the house, cooking and cleaning, doing everything by yourself. Or you'll be the evil, wicked stepmother because you're trying to cock block his opportunities with other younger princesses looking to be rescued by another woman's husband. That's the game that's being played. I really want us women to, use more discernment and to love ourselves first before we choose a man just for the sake of saying I got a man. just for the sake of, being married. It's not worth it. I'm sorry. Yes, society says you're supposed to keep the family together. You're supposed to be the bedrock and the backbone of the family. And that is good. But the backbone has been broken. And when you have a broken back, you're paralyzed. You can't move forward in your life. Your body begins to atrophy because you're not using your muscles, right? And so when your body begins to atrophy, you become weaker. You become more susceptible to illnesses. That's like being in an abusive, imbalanced, unfair relationship with someone. You're paralyzed. You're stuck. You're getting weaker. You're getting sicker. You're not happy. But to the outside world, you being a wife means that you're doing the right thing. That means that you are worthy of being your abusive husband's slave. That makes you more valuable now. You, woman, who I've chosen to be my wife, are willing to put up with my bullshit more than any other woman that I know. You are the person who will make my life most comfortable, in spite of how uncomfortable you're feeling as a result of this exchange. So yeah, women need to stop doing that. Please stop putting men and marriage on a pedestal. There's nothing wrong with being in love. There's nothing wrong with being happy. There's nothing wrong with finding the one, quote unquote. But don't romanticize the guy. Don't deify him and make him the key to your happiness. That's the problem. Because now you're going to be willing to put up with a lot more abuse than otherwise because you think that having him makes you more happier and fulfilled. You feel validated by his presence in your life. And it's not supposed to be that way. You're supposed to be happy on your own, by yourself, for yourself, with or without a man. That's the first step. Instead of spending all this money on cosmetic surgery, Hazel E should have been to therapy. Extensive emotional and psychological therapy. To, deal with the trauma of being raised in an abusive household and then being in an abusive relationship as a result. Right? Having unrealistic expectations for a man in marriage. A man is not supposed to save you from yourself. He can't save you from yourself. Cat Williams couldn't even save her. She was that broken. This is not Cat Williams' fault. This isn't even a dusty husband's fault. The dusty husband was doing what dusty men do. He was being a predator. You can't get mad at a snake for being a snake. All you can do is cut the fucking snake's head off and keep it pushing. But then learn the lesson. Don't keep repeating the same mistakes because then you'll have a whole bunch of dead snakes around you and no self-awareness about how you got in that situation. Unfortunately, because Hazel E is approaching a certain time in her life and the transits are not in her favor for any of the fixed signs, including TJ Holmes and his girlfriend, Amy Robach, because they're Leo and Aquarius as well. They're learning some lessons too. I'll talk about them later. Because of these really difficult transits, a lot of us don't have the luxury of being naive and ignorant anymore, okay? We are now being forced to respect our bodies, respect our minds, respect our intuition. When you sense something is wrong, you gotta pay attention to it. You gotta investigate it further. Am I being paranoid? Or is the universe warning me that this man or woman is not the best person for me? Okay? So just like we want men to practice discipline when it comes to their penis and who they sleep with, we need women to be more disciplined in their criteria for partnership. It goes both ways, right? So you have better criteria for partnership and these men are more disciplined in their sexual practices, then we can start to rebuild what's been broken from decades of structural violence that's been inflicted upon us by the government. That's the only way we can fix this, through discipline and awareness. Once you know better, you do better, right? And once you can do better, you can keep doing it repetitively. That's what discipline is. Even if it's not easy for you, you know that by continuing to exercise discipline and discernment and self-awareness throughout your life, you can have more control over the outcomes of your relationships, your work life, your family life, etc. All right? So I'm gonna leave it there. If you want to order a personal astrology or tarot reading, go to mindoflilith.com, fill out the order entry form, submit payment via CashApp or Stripe, and I'll have your order sent to you within 3 to 5 business days. Also, the community store is now open. You can purchase some merchandise from the platform. Again, I appreciate your support. I look forward to reading your feedback. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I will speak to you soon.